On the very day when Imperial concubine Su Wan was sentenced to death by a cup of poisoned wine for plotting against the imperial heir, my husband also took his own life. In the study, he left behind a single phrase: death on the same day. It was only after I sorted through his belongings that I discovered he had been in love with Su Wan for many years. All the kindness and favor he had shown me over the years were merely a means to secure my family's power and status, paving the way for Su Wan. Hidden compartments in the study were filled with countless portraits of Su Wan and his yearnings for her. And yet, I are seen. Despite my wholehearted devotion to him all these years, he left me nothing but the grievous crime of treason. Reborn into this life, I gaze coldly at the young couple beneath the peach blossoms. This time, I shall ensure that you both perish on the same day, and early at that. When the palace guards arrived at the Prime Minister's mansion, I was in the midst of dismembering a body. Half an hour earlier, I had prepared a broth to comfort my husband, and Jingchu, the usual sentinel, and Yang, was nowhere to be seen at the study's door. After calling out twice without a reply, I hesitantly pushed open the study door. What I saw was a scene I never wished to witness in this life. Blood had spread across half the table, and Jingchu lay lifeless upon it, a faint smile lingering at the corner of his mouth, clutching my wildly pounding heart. I barely had time to scream before I was stunned by the numerous portraits adorning the room, one after another, large and small. Each painting portrayed the same woman. She was slender and graceful, sometimes standing, sometimes seated, depicted from her youthful bloom to her mature allure, rendered with vivid lifelikeness. Anyone could see the artist's profound affection for the woman in the paintings. I immediately recognized her as Su Wan, a favored concubine whose beauty had reigned supreme in the capital for over a decade. Just this morning, news had arrived that Su Wan had conspired to assassinate the young prince and was executed by the emperor's poisoned wine. Knowing that Su Wan was a relative of Jingchu and fearing his grief, I had specially prepared the broth to comfort him. Yet instead of witnessing his sorrow, I uncovered his secret. No wonder he never allowed me into the study. Staring blankly at the paintings, I approached, and Jingchu, the pain in my heart was suffocating, yet I could not discern whether it stemmed from his death or his betrayal. Beneath his arm lay a piece of paper freshly inscribed with 4 chilling characters, smeared with blood: death on the same day. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course, and Jingchu had once told me that he and Su Wan were cousins, born on the same year, month, and day, which had made their bond especially close. Now, their closeness had become something far more intimate, too. "Madam, why have you come?" "Your servant, my lord." Anyang hurried over his face, filled with shock. When he caught sight of the 4 characters beneath Jingchu's arm, a flicker of understanding passed through his eyes. "You knew all along." I fixed my gaze on Anyang's eyes. He fell silent for 2 seconds. "My lord and the lady have been childhood sweethearts, growing up together with an extraordinary bond." All I felt was sorrow. And what about me? I had stood by his side for 10 years, helping him rise from a fallen noble to the powerful prime minister. I bore him a son and a daughter, raising them with propriety and intelligence. I diligently managed the household affairs, winning hearts and never letting him worry about money. In the end, he took his own life for a childhood sweetheart, abandoning me and our children. It was utterly ridiculous. Driven to near madness, I ransacked the small study, desperate to find even a shred of evidence that he had cared for me and our children, as if that could soothe my heart. as if he had room for us in his heart at all. Finally, I found a hidden compartment containing only fragments about us, and yet, the more I uncovered, the more absurd it became. The thick stack of letters in that secret compartment was filled entirely with correspondence between him and Su Wan. They poured out their deep affection and longing for each other in those letters. As for me and the children he wrote, Xiao Shi is the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's mansion, simple and easily deceived. The palace is perilous. I must secure high office to shield you. Having children with her was merely to silence the gossip. My heart belongs to the bright Munyo, should know this. If you are willing to escape with me, what are wealth and family worth? I closed my eyes, struggling to hold back the dizziness clouding my mind. So that was it. Marrying me was for my family background, and because I was easily deceived, my children and I were nothing more than disposable filth to him. Well, how wonderful. I steadied myself, opened my eyes, and met Enyang's sympathetic gaze. Is there anything else? Tell me everything at once. Anyang sighed. The troops used by the Imperial concubine to assassinate the young prince were arranged by my lord. In an instant, my head spun, and the hatred for Su Wan and Jingchu surged to my temples. And Jingchu, with bloodshot eyes, I drew the short dagger from his neck and plunged it repeatedly into his body. Plotting regicide was not only a crime punishable by death, but also one that implicated the entire family. No wonder Enyang was willing to reveal these secrets to me, because the entire Prime Minister's mansion was doomed. And Jingchu not only intended to die for love, but to drag us all down with him. He deserved to die. But no matter how many pieces I tore him into, I could not stop the footsteps of the palace guards. 3. Miss, it is Master An. The carriage suddenly came to a halt. I lifted the curtain and looked toward the entrance, and Jinka's tall figure stood at the gate of the Prime Minister's mansion, clad in simple blue linen. Yet he appeared as noble and refined as a rare orchid, his bearing extraordinary. Many nearby maids and young ladies stole glances at him secretly. This was the first time I had seen in Jingchu since my rebirth. In the previous life, and Jinka's suicide had led to the massacre of the entire Prime Minister's household by the palace guards, and my 2 children had perished silently before my eyes. I hated Jingchu. After my rebirth half a month ago, I longed to tear him and Su Wan to pieces immediately, but I could not. And Jingchu had already passed the Imperial examination as the top scholar and been granted an official position. Also, and Owen Towand, killing him outright would be far too easy a punishment. Master, and do you have business here? And Jingchu paused, bowed slightly, and wore a look of concern. I heard that Miss Chow has been unwell, and I was worried, so I came to visit. I said nothing. My father was the chief civil official, not only holding important government posts, but also revered by scholars and poets for his literary talents. Before and after the imperial examinations, many students from across the land came to the capital, presenting their finest poems to esteemed officials in hopes of recommendation. And Jingchu had also submitted a poem to my father. My father greatly admired it. After Jingchu passed as the top scholar, my father, valuing talent, invited him to our home for a drink. That was when I first met him. From then on, he would occasionally visit under the pretense of discussing scholarship with my father, but any discerning person could see his true intentions were elsewhere. Eventually, the noble families of the capital whispered that the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter would be betrothed to the top scholar. In my former life, deceived by Jingchu, I blushed at such rumors and entertained no other thoughts. Now I understand that those rumors were surely spread by Jingchu himself. Since my Rebirth. I have repeatedly shut the door on him when he came to visit. He must have been anxious, which is why he blocked the gate today. Thank you for your concern, Master, but I have already recovered. I stepped down from the carriage and strode past him into the mansion. Wait. And Jingchu suddenly called out and handed me a small package. I heard Miss Chow likes the osmanthus cakes from the southern city. I just bought these, and they are still warm. I hope you won't mind. I glanced at the box, then at Njinka's apprehensive face, and a faint smile curved my lips. Thank you for your trouble. Before Njingchu could exhale in relief, I cast a glance toward the maid Xianger. Xianger understood immediately, producing a small pouch from which she poured out a string of copper coins and handed them to Njingchu. Lord, and 46 wen, is it not? Njinka's face was filled with disbelief as he took a step back. Miss Chow, you keep it. It wouldn't do to accept Lord Anne's goods without compensation. I paused briefly, then added, Lord Anne personally queued to purchase these and deliver them. A little extra gratuity is well deserved. Xianger add 10 more wen, and Jinka's complexion paled slightly, his fingers tightening into a fist. I turned and left. Seeing this, Xianger slipped the coins into Njingcha's bosom and hurried after me. Miss, what shall we do with the osmanthus cakes? Throw them away. Yes, miss. As the gates of the Prime Minister's residence closed behind us, I glanced sideways to see Njingchu still standing in place, his expression wounded. At his feet lay scattered osmanthus cakes, strewn all over the ground. The vicinity of the Prime Minister's mansion was home to nobles and high officials, the most well-informed among the city's elite. Within less than an hour of my embarrassment to Njingchu, half the influential families in the capital had heard about it. When my father returned home, he couldn't help but inquire, weren't you fond of that young man not long ago? Why have you suddenly ceased all contact? There was no need to hide anything from my father. I straightforwardly told him that Njingchu had a cousin, and the two had long been betrothed. Upon hearing this, my father's face darkened, and he was silent for a long while. At last he sighed deeply. It seems your father has misjudged him. My mother had passed away early, and my father, a man of deep affection, had devoted himself entirely to state affairs over the years, never remarrying nor taking a concubine. As the chancellor had no sons and wielded immense power, the royal family trusted him implicitly. Being my father's only daughter, I had suitors from prominent families from the age of 13. My father, fearing that after his passing I would be left without a family to lean on, was exceedingly cautious about my marriage. He had hoped Njingchu was a man of excellent character, but it turned out his virtue was but a well-crafted disguise. Enough. Hez just a boy from a humble home, scheming, as he is hardly a man of noble character. I will find you a better match. I smiled gently, looking at my father's graying temples with a pang of sympathy. He had loved deeply all his life. If not for me, he would have long since joined my mother in the afterlife. In my previous life, I married Njingchu, and in the second year of our marriage, I became pregnant. Shortly after the child was born, my father passed away with a smile on his lips. He had trusted Njingchu so completely that until his last breath, he believed the man would care for his daughter forever. He died without regret, yet failed to see Njinka's sinister intentions. I poured a cup of water for my father, offering comfort. Your daughter is still young and wishes to accompany you a few more years. Don't worry, father. If we can't find a suitable match, We can always bring in a son-in-law to carry on the Chow family. My father laughed, scolding, "Nonsense. What decent man would want to marry into a family as a son-in-law? Then, well, find a man who is less than perfect, so long as his appearance and character are acceptable. At worst, the son inherits from the father, continuing our Chow lineage." My father was speechless at my audacious words, and, after a long pause, raised his hand to lightly tap my head. Suddenly, a commotion arose outside. "What's going on?" My heart stirred. Perhaps an imperial edict has arrived. An edict? How could there be an edict? Before the words had fully left my mouth, the edict was delivered. Along with the edict came countless treasures of gold, silver, jade, and precious ornaments. My father pulled me down to kneel and listen to the edict, and only then did he understand. "You saved Princess Jopping." Indeed, I had saved Princess Jopping. Princess Jopping was born of the Empress, the Crown Prince's younger sister, and the Emperor's most beloved youngest daughter. In the previous life, when the 80-year-old Princess Jopping went out with the Crown Prince to play, she was abducted due to his negligence by some ruffians. By the time the Imperial Guards found her, she had already perished. For this, the Emperor vented his anger on the Crown Prince, and the Empress fell gravely ill. It was during this time that Su Wan entered the palace. Since my rebirth a fortnight ago, I had quietly kept watch on the Crown Prince's movements. When I learned that he had taken Princess Jopping out of the palace today, I knew the opportunity had come. Sure enough, I rescued Princess Jopping. That very night, rewards from the Emperor, Empress, and Crown Prince flowed continuously into the Prime Minister's residence, accompanied by an invitation to the 100 Flowers banquet. The 100 Flowers banquet was originally intended to select brides for the 3 adult princes, inviting noble young ladies and talented youths from prominent families. In the previous life, when the banquet was held, Princess Jopping had just passed away. The Empress was bedridden, and the Dowager Empress presided over the event. Su Wan, claiming to be Jingta's cousin, barely managed to attend the banquet, but was not chosen by any prince. Instead, she encountered the Emperor, who was drinking alone in the garden. One drunken night, one deliberate encounter, and the banquet yielded no prince's consort but, rather, a favored imperial noble consort, Su Wan. Now that Princess Jopping was alive and well, and the Empress personally presided over the banquet, it remained to be seen whether Su Wan would have such fortune again. 6. The 100 Flowers banquet was held at a royal villa on the outskirts of the capital. I arrived rather early, and as I reached the villa's entrance, I saw the Empress's attendant approaching with a beaming smile. At my arrival, Princess Jopping and the Crown Prince were also present. The Empress's countenance was gentle, her face adorned with a warm smile as she spoke to me affectionately. "How pitiful your mother passed away early, and Prime Minister Chow is always busy with state affairs, so no one has taken you out for a stroll. I can't recall the last time I saw you, must have been years ago. Now, you have grown into such a charming young lady." My father was a man of integrity who wished to keep me from being entangled in royal intrigues and exploited. Therefore, he had always been reluctant to let me attend royal banquets, especially those where princes sought brides. Hence, in my previous life, I never attended this banquet, and the last time I saw the Empress was at the New Year's Eve palace feast when I was 10. The Empress scrutinized me closely, growing increasingly pleased, then inquired about my marriage prospects, whether I was betrothed or had a suitor. When I shyly denied these, her smile deepened, her expression softened, and she cast a subtle glance toward the Crown Prince, seated nearby. "Prime Minister Chow has only you as his daughter. Surely, he does not wish for you to suffer. Marriage is no trivial matter, and must be carefully considered. Fortunately, today's banquet gathers many talented and accomplished young men. You should look carefully. Feigning ignorance, I lowered my head and mumbled. Soon a noblewoman came to pay respects, and the Empress signaled for us to leave. She specially instructed the Crown Prince. Miss Chow is visiting this villa for the first time. Crown Prince, please accompany her and show her around properly. Do not neglect her. The Crown Prince bowed his head in agreement. Upon stepping out of the room, he slightly bowed and saluted me. I have yet to thank you properly for the incident involving Princess Jopping. I evaded your highness need not be so courteous. It was merely a small favor. To Miss Chow, perhaps a small favor, but to me and the Emperor and Empress, it is a great matter. Should you ever need assistance, do not hesitate to call upon me. Looking into the Crown Prince's earnest eyes, I inwardly chuckled. He was wise enough to perceive the Empress's intentions, yet bound by his heart. He feared I might use this favor to seek marriage with him. Having witnessed the deep affection between the Crown Prince and his future princess consort in my previous life, I naturally would not intrude. However, leveraging this to gain favor with the Crown Prince was certainly within reason. Pretending to ponder for a moment, I said, I do have some matters I would like to ask your highness for help with. The Crown Prince paused. Please, Miss Chow, speak. I have two cousins who possess some modest talents, but their fortunes have been ill-starred. They are as stubborn and upright as my father and refuse to bow their heads. I cannot bear to see them study diligently for years without being able to serve the court. Therefore, I dare to ask your highness to. It was merely a matter of recommending two individuals, nothing of great consequence. Moreover, my father has never taken sides, nor does he permit anyone in our clan to entangle themselves with the princes. My words not only conveyed to the Crown Prince that I would not exploit favors to marry into the Eastern Palace, but also subtly revealed the Chow family's intention to align with him. As expected, the Crown Prince's countenance brightened, and he consented. 7. The Crown Prince was occupied with affairs, and soon someone came to see him. He left behind 2 guards and several palace maids for protection, so I took Princess Jopping by the hand and strolled leisurely through the garden. Princess Jopping was quite dependent on me. Along the way, she chattered incessantly, telling me about her recent delightful acquisitions and recounting how she was so frightened the other day that she almost thought she was going to die. While comforting her, I walked as if it were my first time in this place, feigning casualness. As we reached a secluded spot, faint rustling noises suddenly came from ahead. Princess Jopping and I exchanged a glance and halted. Then words drifted on the breeze. Brother Jing Wanner knows she owes you much, but the vengeance for my mother's death cannot be left unavenged. In this life, let us consider ourselves fated, yet not destined to be together. In the next life, Wanner will repay you with utmost gratitude. Beneath the peach blossom tree, Su Wan stood like a fragile willow, swaying in the wind, weeping uncontrollably. Her delicate face was streaked with tears, each drop falling in a mournful cascade that would stir anyone's compassion. Must it really be this way? Wait for me, just wait for me. 5 years, no, 3 years. After 3 years, I will surely help you exact revenge. Su Wan shook her head. That is impossible. The Wang family wields immense power over the court. Besides the emperor, no one can help me. If the Wang family learns of my existence, they will kill me. And then Brother Jing will be implicated as well. Brother Jing, if you have any blame, blame me. The beauty's tears fell, evoking deep sympathy, and Jingchu, his heart aching, gently kissed her. How could I blame you? It is I who am at fault, I who am powerless, unable to help you avenge your mother, forcing a fragile girl like you to resort to such schemes. Wainer, it is my failure. No, Brother Jing, you are the kindest person to Wanner in this world. In Wainer's heart, you are the most formidable, and Jinka's expression softened, and he could not help but kiss the tears on Su Wan's face, utterly disregarding the fact that they were in the Empress's garden. A cold smile crept into my heart. In my previous life, this very scene had been recorded by Jingchu in a love letter to Su Wan, describing it as the happiest yet most sorrowful day of his life. Happy because he kissed the love of his heart. Sorrowful because he was sending her into the Emperor's embrace. He even detailed the secret rendezvous spot in the letter. It would have been nearly impossible for me not to find it, ensuring that the nearby palace servants and guards witnessed the scene. I pretended to be embarrassed and covered Princess Jopping's eyes as we left. Only after turning down a small path did I release her hand. Princess Jopping's eyes widened. Sister Chow, was that what they call a secret tryst? Perhaps. But Master Anne and that lady are still young. When mutual affection blooms, it is understandable that they may be unable to restrain themselves. Princess Jopping pouted. Sister Chow, you're just being kind. The teacher says that even if passion runs high, it should not breach decorum. Even if feelings are uncontrollable, one should not be so reckless here. I smiled without replying. Princess Jopping, both childlike and cunning, shook her head and continued. Father also said that although Scholar Anne's family background is humble, he is upright and courteous, but now it seems he is no better than the rest. By the way, who is that woman? I've never heard of her, and she has a grudge against the Wang family. Which Wang family? Princess Jopping was puzzled. I declined to enlighten her, so she went to inquire of the Empress. Unexpectedly, the Empress's expression changed immediately. Many powerful families in this dynasty bear the surname Wang, but those who truly dominate the court and are only reined in by the Emperor himself are limited to the Empress's maternal Clanthodingwo Duke's family. The Empress promptly ordered an investigation. 8. Before the investigators returned, the time for the 100 Flowers banquet arrived. The Empress accompanied Princess Jopping and me to the banquet garden. Many noble ladies and young men were present, their eyes filled with scrutiny and suspicion directed at me. I understood that most of these young women were vying for the crown prince's favor. My presence alongside the Empress naturally attracted their attention. The Empress exchanged a few polite words, then gestured for the young men and women to amuse themselves. I did not join them, but stayed by the Empress's side, accompanying Princess Jopping in play. To onlookers, this gave rise to yet another layer of conjecture. I quietly kept track of the time. Partway through, I visited the changing room. Upon stepping out, I was intercepted. It was Jingchu. Master Anne. I nodded politely, intending to leave. Suddenly, Jingchu grasped my sleeve. He hesitated, then said, Miss Chow, do you favor the Crown Prince? Of course. The Crown Prince is wise and valiant, possessing the bearing of a future sovereign. Every woman in the realm admires him, I replied calmly. I not only admire the Crown Prince, but also His Majesty, the Empress, and all who serve the nation and its people. And Jingchu was momentarily taken aback. That is not what I meant. Then, Westin Al-R, does your lordship mean you do not favor the Crown Prince? And Jingchu pressed his lips together. Just as I grew impatient and prepared to leave, he said, Miss Chow, you are straightforward by nature, and Chancellor Chow is upright and honest. The inner palace has always been rife with intrigues. You truly should not step into this mire. I chuckled lightly, appraising him from head to toe. Master Anne, the affairs of the Chow family are none of your concern. Moreover, speaking ill of the imperial clan is punishable by death. I made a beheading gesture, watching with satisfaction as Jingchu's face paled before turning away. Today, The auxiliary residence was crowded and chaotic. The Imperial guards had been dispatched in force, making security tighter than usual. After Princess Jopping and the Empress had related the incident of Master and Su Wan's secret liaison, the Empress's agents kept a close watch on them. How strange that no one had heard his words. There must have been spies hidden somewhere in this garden. 9. I returned to my seat. Within less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, a palace servant hurried to the Empress's side and whispered something in her ear. The Empress's face immediately darkened with fury. She rose to leave, but as if recalling something, turned back and beckoned to Princess Jopping and me to follow. Though puzzled, Princess Jopping obeyed her mother's command. A large group proceeded through a bamboo grove into a small courtyard. Upon entering, we saw a middle-aged man in a purple robe slumped against a chair beneath a tree, his robe open at the chest, reeking of drunkenness, his face unnaturally flushed. Beside him sat a disheveled woman, leaning closely toward the Emperor. The Empress's sudden intrusion caused the woman to look up immediately. Her tear-streaked, delicate face was heart-rendingly beautiful, stirring pity in any observer. The Emperor lifted his head slightly, his bleary eyes meeting ours. Upon seeing the Empress, a trace of impatience flickered in his gaze, but he lazily rose to adjust his attire. Empress, you were in the front courtyard. What brings you here? Before the Empress could reply, Princess Jopping tilted her head towards Su Wan. You look familiar. Ah, I remember now. You are the woman who had a secret tryst with Scholar and in the garden. Su Wan's face drained of color. The Emperor sobered somewhat and frowned. What did you say? Princess Jopping dashed to the Emperor's side, peering closely at Su Wan before nodding decisively. Father, I was not mistaken. When Sister Chow and I were strolling in the garden, I saw them together, kissing and embracing, and they spoke of seeking vengeance against the Wang family for my mother's murder, saying only Father could settle it. I wanted to ask more, but Sister Chow covered my eyes, telling me not to look at such impropriety. I did not get the chance to question further. Disregarding Su Wan, who had instantly slipped and fallen to her knees, she craned her neck forward and pressed further. Weren't you eager to see the Emperor? The Emperor is here now. If you harbor any blood feud against your mother or any resentment toward the Wang family, now is the time to bring it before the Emperor. He is the highest authority after all. Su Wan remained silent, her head bowed, sobbing audibly. The Emperor narrowed his eyes, fixating on her intently. Given his position, he was well aware that this so-called romantic encounter today was nothing more than a carefully orchestrated scheme. Su Wan was indeed beautiful, and he found her satisfactory. Yet, if he desired beauties, the world was full of them. Imperial authority, however, was not to be trifled with. He waved his hand dismissively and ordered an investigation. 10. With the assistance of the Crown Prince and the Empress, the Emperor swiftly uncovered the truth, and Jing Chu, now an attendant within the imperial court, had exploited the Emperor's trust and his official position to covertly divulge the Emperor's whereabouts to Su Wan, facilitating her discreet arrival at the secluded garden to approach the Emperor. Even the Emperor's drunkenness was part of an ingenious, calculated plan. Upon hearing this, I once again marveled at Njinka's audacity and his profound affection for Su Wan. However, recalling that in a previous lifetime he had committed grievous acts against the imperial heirs for her sake, this did not surprise me, and Jingchu was soon brought before the court. Upon seeing the courtyard filled with nobles and Su Wan prostrate on the ground, sobbing as if on the verge of fainting, he immediately understood the situation. He knelt directly upon the ground, hands flat against the floor. "Your servant is guilty." The emperor sneered coldly. "What crime? Speak, Lord." An and Jingchu assumed full responsibility, confessing that his own malicious intent and lust for power had driven him to present a beauty to the emperor's harem. The empress interjected, icily, "Oh, I have heard that Su Wan bears a vendetta against the Wang family for her mother's death. Pray tell which Wang family, and what matricidal grudge could compel you two lovebirds to separate and seek justice within the palace." And Jingchu lowered his head in silence, while Su Wan could only weep. Yet, if the royal investigators wished to delve deeper, it was a straightforward matter. Soon Su Wan's background was fully uncovered. Her birth mother had been a maid to the Duchess of the Guogong family, but had betrayed her by carrying on an illicit affair during the Duchess' pregnancy. In a fit of rage, the Duchess had arranged for her to be sold into servitude. The maid had escaped, but only then realized she was with child. She gave birth and had intended to return to the capital with her child to seek dignity. But the journey was long, the child too young, and funds scarce, causing years of delay. Ultimately, on the return trip, when Su Wan was 8 years old, the maid passed away. After the maid's death, Su Wan was rescued and raised by Jingchu's mother. Once, by chance, she saw the retinue of the ladies of the Dingguogong mansion returning home for a familial visit, and jealousy stirred within her. Though both were daughters of the Wang family, she was left to survive on meager meals. From then on, hatred took root in her heart. She vowed to live a life above all others, to trample the Wang family beneath her feet. Thus, she lied to Jingchu, claiming a mortal enmity with the Wang family and alleging that her mother had been murdered by them. And Jingchu, moved by pity and trust, believed her wholeheartedly and was willing to devise schemes on her behalf. The maid had been a slave by status and was sold by the matron of the household, a process lawful and without fault. The greater crime lay in the slave's escape and the conspiracies of Su Wan and Jingchu against the emperor. The empress and I awaited the emperor's judgment upon the pair, but to our surprise, he chose to let the matter rest. After all, she is of the Guogong family's bloodline. It is lamentable she has fallen to such straits. This is but a misunderstanding, now resolved, and thus no longer an issue. Lord An is a man of exceptional talent. Deceived by others, I cherish talent, so I shall not hold this against you. Both Jingchu and Su Wan were dumbfounded, staring blankly at the emperor. The emperor smiled, his gaze deep and penetrating as he fixed upon them. "A gentleman delights in the success of others. You two are a pair of ill-fated lovers today. I shall play the benevolent role to the end and grant you a marriage." I noticed the emperor's eyes linger on Su Wan, and my heart stirred. The emperor had taken a liking to Su Wan, and Jingchu was promoted, though his rank rose. It was a hollow elevation. He was moved from a frontline position to a titular post, a promotion in name, but a demotion in reality. Still, he was to wed a beloved bride, the young lady recently reclaimed by the Dingguogong mansion, securing the backing of that powerful house and forging a promising future. Unaware officials offered their congratulations on the day of Jingchu and Su Wan's wedding. The courtyard was packed to capacity. Even the emperor attended personally. My father was there as well. Yet, upon his return, his expression was somewhat unsettled. I offered him a cup of sobering tea. "Father, what troubles you?" And Jingchu appeared rather displeased today. The 4 great joys of life: promotion, marriage, childbirth, and purchase of a home. He had achieved 2 today. How could he be unhappy? Others found it perplexing. I harbored faint suspicions. This emperor in his youth had been a wise ruler, but age had rendered him somewhat dim-witted. In a previous lifetime, his singular favor towards Su Wan had led him to reckless actions that strained the court's atmosphere and fractured the imperial couple's harmony. Otherwise, Su Wan would never have dared to poison the imperial heir. Though I was unversed in state affairs, after my father's death, to aid Anjinka's advancement, I had mingled within my father's network, gaining insight into matters I might otherwise have been ignorant of. Now, armed with memory, I could foresee much. I employed this knowledge to counsel my two elder cousins. They had already aligned with the crown prince, and, under my guidance, gained increasing favor. At first, my father was unaware, but when he noticed their frequent visits and inquiries, he sought me out for a candid conversation. The imperial family is rife with strife. Now that the princes have come of age, peace will be fleeting. Shishi, our family has always remained neutral. We should not entangle ourselves. I had once believed my father's approach, being a loyal minister solely devoted to the people, was correct. Yet the reality was that after his passing, he was forgotten. The imperial family no longer remembered him, and the ministers dared not speak a word in our defense. When the Forbidden Army came to seize our home, no one remembered that I was the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household. I was known only as the wife of the disgraced Jingchu. Even presenting the death pardon my father had left behind was futile, as the Forbidden Army did not recognize it. Or rather, the emperor himself refused to, because the Chao family no longer had a powerful patron. It was deemed worthless. Our entire household's bloodshed was met with indifference. Only at night did some hurried relatives arrive to collect the bodies of myself and the children. My father served the state for the realm, but I must ensure the Chao family wields power. Thus, even if events similar to those of the previous life recur, the imperial family would weigh the Chao family's influence and mete out a lighter judgment. Intrafamilial imperial strife is indeed terrifying, but it is far better than facing crises alone. These thoughts I kept from my father. I merely analyzed the pros and cons of involvement in imperial affairs with him and spoke of the crown prince's character and the likelihood of his smooth accession. My father was silent for a long time before saying, "I am not unaware of these matters, Shishi, but I only wish for you to live a peaceful and free life." Looking at his graying hair, I could not suppress my sorrow. He believed he could arrange everything for me, ensuring a life without worries. Such had been the case in both past and present lives. But father relying on others is unreliable. Not all men in this world will treat their wives as you did mother. Even if now you find someone trustworthy to marry me off to, one day, when you are gone, will he truly remain the same? Like this, if it succeeds, at least I will have my family's support. My father frowned. Those cousins of yours, me father, harbored deep mistrust toward the members of our clan. Because he had only one daughter and was unwilling to take a concubine, he often found himself at odds with the clan. I smiled and said, "Father, rest assured, the clan brothers I choose will all be dependable." Sure are. The emperor's favor toward Jingchu grew ever stronger. In the brief span of 3 months, Anjinka's rank ascended thrice, and he amassed countless treasures of gold and silver. Yet, upon closer reflection, every time he was promoted, the position he assumed was purely titular. The court officials could not fathom the emperor's true intentions. However, the emperor, with nothing better to do, frequently visited Anjinka's residence, his presence unmistakably genuine. Sensing the prevailing currents, many officials sought to curry favor and thus befriended Anjingchu. Through this exchange, they gleaned much about Anjingchu's household affairs. 3 months later, as the weather grew colder, news broke that Su Wan was expecting. Officials eager to ingratiate themselves were the first to offer congratulations to Anjingchu. Unexpectedly, instead of a smile, they were met with a sullen expression. "Why is Lord and so peculiar?" I offered my sincere congratulations, yet he turned a cold shoulder. I heard he shared a deep childhood bond with his wife. Surely he wouldn't be displeased about her pregnancy. Come to think of it, the Duke of Dingguo doesn't seem amused either. Wasn't Anjinka's wife the Duke's daughter? The officials were baffled, but soon they uncovered the truth. A rumor began circulating through the streets and alleys of the capital. Anjinka's wife had been unfaithful. The child she carried was not his. The officials were stunned, and their understanding of Anjinka's prior demeanor shifted. For several days they watched him with sympathy. Yet, the more sympathy they showed, the darker Anjinka's expression became. Then, on a bitterly cold morning, while en route to court, he lost focus, fell from his horse, and broke his leg. Son, I heard the sky was too dark at the time, and no attendants accompanied him. After the fall, he couldn't rise, and it was nearly an hour before anyone came to his aid. When rescued, he was nearly frozen and suffered high fevers for several consecutive days. When my father returned, he remarked calmly, "Lord Anne's plight has only deepened our sympathy." I laughed. "Perhaps, Lord, and did it on purpose. At least, this way, he need not face those pitying gazes at court." My father squinted at me. "Speaking of which, who knows if the rumor is true or false? If true, why hasn't Lord Anne divorced his wife or compelled her to terminate the pregnancy? If false, why hasn't he sought official channels to find the slanderers?" I sensed his unspoken question and replied softly, "He cannot divorce, nor can he terminate the pregnancy, and he does not seek out the slanderer unless it is not a falsehood, and the adulterer holds such power that he dares not act." I stopped speaking. My father took a deep breath and quietly sipped his tea. Only one person fit that description: the Emperor, who had been frequenting Anjinka's residence these past months. "Did you have someone spread that rumor?" I denied it. No, though I wished to strengthen the Chow family, I was not foolish enough to have our people intervene. The current conflict was between the Imperial family and Anjingchu, and had nothing to do with us. I merely used 2 clan brothers to pass some words to the crown prince. My father remained silent, stroking his teacup in thoughtful contemplation. He was loyal to the emperor over the years. The emperor had treated him fairly well, though they had political differences. As a solitary minister, he was favored even more than the Duke of Dinggua's family, who wielded great power at court. Yet, in recent years, the emperor had grown dim-witted and no longer the benevolent sovereign he once was, leading to more frequent disagreements with my father. Still, he never imagined the emperor capable of such acts of theft and betrayal, stealing from his ministers and taking their wives. After long reflection, my father lowered his eyes and said, "Wait a little longer, Shi." What my father suspected, the officials naturally guessed as well. The rumors grew increasingly vicious, with talk throughout the city that the emperor had taken his minister's wife. Some even speculated that Anjinka's fall from grace was suspicious. Perhaps the emperor wished him dead to bring Lady Anne into the palace. Before the emperor could suppress these rumors, senior officials from the censorate offered their counsel. No one knew precisely what they said, only that 6 senior officials risked their lives to admonish the emperor, which only enraged him further. In the end, 2 officials died by ramming their heads against pillars, 3 were injured, and 1 removed his cap on the spot, declaring his retirement. Afterwards, the emperor did not relent. Instead, he issued an edict stripping the 6 officials of their titles and confiscating half a year's salary, even demanding the families of the deceased repay the silver. The court and city alike fell into fearful silence. It seemed everyone had become obedient. My father returned, sighing deeply for half a day and sitting in his study until late at night. Finally, at breakfast, he suddenly asked me, "What is the crown prince's intention?" Sure. The crown prince naturally sought to ascend the throne. He was virtuous and talented and should have secured his position easily had it not been for Su Wan's interference in his previous life and the emperor's growing senility. He would not have been suppressed repeatedly, nor lost his son to Su Wan's schemes. Now, when the emperor arranged the marriage of Njingchu and Su Wan, declaring that Su Wan would wed as the daughter of the Duke of Dingguo's household, the emperor and empress quarreled bitterly. A servant girl's daughter, who still bore resentment toward the duke's family, was to marry with the honors of the head lady of the household. This was a slap in the face to the Duke of Dingguo's family. The Duke's household had long harbored anger. The matter's public exposure was timely. Soon, news arrived of snow disasters in the north and freezing rain in the south. Simultaneously, nomadic tribes from the northwest border raided, and the region suffered from winter drought. Our vast nation faced natural calamities every winter, but never had so many occurred simultaneously. Petitions for disaster relief piled on the emperor's desk like snowflakes. Alongside, rumors spread among the populace. Whispers circulated that the current sovereign was immoral and inept, that he stole his ministers' wives and muddled the royal bloodline, and thus heaven had sent its punishment. As the rumors intensified, 2 princely armies rebelled, sweeping from south to north like a storm. The emperor was overwhelmed, dispatching troops while attempting to trace the source of the rumors. Yet having just sent troops to the northwest, the only forces available to repel the rebels belonged to the Duke of Dingguo's faction. The emperor was powerless and had to seek favor with the empress. Thus, Su Wan died, along with the child she carried. She was slain in the bustling streets. The assailants vanished without a trace, and Jingchu did not report the crime, nor did he retrieve her body. Instead, he had servants hastily wrap the remains and cast them into a common grave. Thereafter, he feigned illness and took leave. The troops dispatched by the Duke of Dingguo failed to withstand the rebels, who seized several cities. As the rebels drew nearer to the capital, tension gripped the city. I inspected the shops under the Chow family's name and made preparations. On my way home, I encountered Jingchu. He appeared gaunt and desolate, yet his eyes were far more mature and profound. He gazed up at me from his carriage, hands lightly lowered, still faintly radiating pride. "Shishi, let's talk." Indeed, he had been reborn as well. But talk, I sneered and gestured to the side. Seize him. I was no fool to engage in conversation with him, thinking I was the obedient Chow Shishi from the previous life. Several guards immediately appeared, and in a matter of moments, they pinned Jingchu to the ground, and Jingchu was caught off guard. He knelt on the ground, looking up at me, shouting, "I know you have returned as well, Chow Shishi. You have been utterly unfilial. This year, the northern snow disaster was hardly severe. The northwest border remained undisturbed, and the southern freezing rain should only arrive next month. It's Yutsu and the Duke of Dingguo's household. Cut out his tongue and feed it to the dogs." He knew too much. Yet, he foolishly failed to safeguard himself first. It wasn't that he was stupid, rather, he was far too confident in his ability to control me, assuming I was the same as in my previous life. 17. Ultimately, Njinka's words reached the emperor's ears. Whether it was because he shouted them aloud that day and someone with intent overheard, or he had already sent a letter to the emperor in advance, no one knew. The next day, my residence was encircled by the Imperial Guards. The commander of the guards held the Imperial Edict, intent on ransacking my home and holding us accountable, just like in my past life. But this time, we were not without allies. No sooner had the Imperial Guards drawn their swords than a commotion erupted outside. A towering uncle of the Chow family brandished a great blade and severed the commander's head. Fresh blood splattered across my face, its stench even more pungent than in my previous life. "Thank you, third uncle. What's the situation outside?" Uncle replied. "The rebels have entered the city unopposed, heading straight for the palace." I smiled. It was done. The emperor committed suicide, and before his death issued a self-accusatory edict, ordering it to be hung at the city gates of the capital to quell the people's fury. Although some old-school court officials expressed doubts, the rebels had already bowed to the crown prince, who had since ascended the throne. Their narrative was firmly established, and any further dissent was futile. The new emperor ascended the throne and distributed rewards according to merit. My father voluntarily stepped down, yet several of my Chow family's elder brothers emerged one after another, occupying significant positions among civil and military officials. In no time, not only did the Chow family not decline, but it also flourished more than ever. After all the affairs were handed over, I escorted my father out of the capital and returned to the Chow family's ancestral lands. Court relations required delicate negotiation, and the clan's interests needed tending. Those family members had now risen to prominence as imperial officials, and my father and I had contributed much behind the scenes. Naturally, we expected to reap some benefits as well. Before long, the venerable clan leader retired, and my father became the new head of the clan. However, with so many clan members, each managing their own duties, my father found himself much freer than when overseeing court politics. Freed from burdens, his spirit visibly improved. I felt relieved. I wished to prevent a recurrence of the premature death that had befallen him in my previous life. Once life returned to normal, my father began to fret over my matrimonial prospects. He had come to somewhat accept my earlier stance and intended to find me a son-in-law, regardless of family background, as long as his character and appearance were acceptable. At worst, the son-in-law would succeed the father. Even so, there were still many candidates. He scrutinized them carefully, and I was in no hurry. After all, I currently had other amusements. My residence was situated somewhat remotely within the clan lands, with mountains behind it and a dungeon deep within the courtyard. At night, I went to the dungeon. In the pitch-dark dungeon, and Jingchu had lost all sense of time. He lay like a heap of rotten flesh on a pile of straw. Hearing footsteps, he stirred slightly, and two rats scurried away swiftly. She, a faint voice spoke laden with supplication. "Kill me, I beg you, kill me. Wouldn't that be too easy for you?" I took the knife handed to me nearby and searched for a patch of relatively intact flesh on his body, stabbing it with effort. "You claimed you didn't care about human lives. You wagered hundreds of lives in your entire household for Su Wan. I thought you were bold, but why are you so terrified now?" "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I beg you, I beg you." I tugged at the corner of my mouth. "Begging me is useless, and Jingchu, you owe hundreds of lives, including those of your own son and daughter. You can't repay that so easily. Endure it. Your days of suffering are far from over." I stood and instructed, "Find someone to tend to his wounds. Don't let him die." 1,000 cuts, a daily gnawing at the bonethat, was the only way to atone for the hundreds of lives he caused to perish in the last life, and for my innocent pair of children. A clean resolution. Dream on.